Was there a moment, or did it just evolve when you knew this was going to be something? Car toys, all of this, when it was going to be successful and it had a good trajectory to it?
Costco was always a roller coaster for the 18 years we were there.
Had to think about your definition of success outside the financial part of success. How would you define it?
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the podcast where we talk to fascinating people about the way they think and the wisdom that they've learned. So, Gary, what's new with you this week?
What's new? Oh, there's something I have been wanting to talk to you about, and that happens every week. I think I'm really looking forward to talking about this. So I'm curious how much you know about a sound effect that's been in over 400 films and TV shows called the Wilhelm scream. Have you ever heard of that?
I think so. In the corner of my mind, there's something there.
Yeah, there was recently an ad with John Krasinski that they used it in, and it reminded me that, oh yeah, the Wilhelm scream. The Wilhelm scream, and if you haven't heard the Wilhelm scream, here it is. That's the Wilhelm.
That sounds familiar. Now I feel like I'm flashing back. Yeah.
I think it's been in so many different films that my idea is see if we could sneak it into the podcast somewhere and get it to 401. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for this week.
Get it to 401. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Well,
the 401st show. I mean, it's probably been on, who knows, more than 400 shows. But anyway, so I'm excited to put the Wilhelm scream in there, but you're going to need to fly off your chair or something like that just for the full effect.
Well, it's going to happen every time we say something silly or nonsensical, right?
Yeah. We'll just punch it in there.
Just to make it happen. Excellent.
I was thinking the Wilhelm scream would be something handy just to have like on your phone at any given time. If you bump your arm or something in the house and you just punch that, and then your wife's like, "What was that? Oh, just me."
Is that like copyrighted or anything?
I don't think so.
So. Pretty easy.
That's a good question. Is it public domain? I think it must be because they use it in so many different films and movies, and it can't be all the same studio.
Yeah, and the licensing would be a pain in the ass on that whole thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, but the question I have though is does anyone really scream that way? I mean,
let's hear it again.
Yeah. Okay. So listen to this carefully. Tell me if this is a normal scream.
Sounds familiar in my house. Really?
I don't know. It's like
even the dog does that. I think
like a guy. It sounds like a guy being shot or something, and that might be the sound you make when you get shot
or fall off an edge or a cliff or something like that.
That's true. Like that could be a gravity fall. You're plummeting.
Gravity fall? You know the details on this?
Well, gravity fall. I guess all falls are gravity falls. But this would be, kind of not like falling down, but like falling, with an extensive drop. Like you're coming off a cliff. I don't know. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like coming off a cliff. I mean, here we go. Yeah.
It sounds like it could be a ringtone.
Oh, yeah. It's a good point. Yeah, that could be a great ringtone.
Yeah. You have to pick the right person to attach that to because it's
There we go. The Wilhelm scream. This is the kind of important information I'm digesting in between when I see you and when I show up again. The podcast is the kind of things I'm grabbing onto. So,
back to the description of our podcast here, the wisdom we've learned.
Right. The wisdom we pick up.
We bring it. We're serious about this.
We're very serious about it.
We're not just skating through these kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about our guest today, and we'll get started here on our episode here soon.
So our guest today is Dan Brettler. He's a Seattle guy up here in the Northwest with us. He was born, mostly raised in Scarsdale, New York, and then went off to UVM for college after graduating with, I think, a business degree and a lot of skiing. He got into a car with a girlfriend, traveled across the country, and wound up in Seattle because the car broke down, and stayed in Seattle, again, because the car broke down. His first job as a career was selling stereos at Pacific Stereo. A few years after he started that, he started his own company called Car Toys. I think it was 1987. And that expanded into some 50-plus stores in 4 different states. And then along the way there, he also developed a partnership with Costco where He ran a store within a store with Costco, so all of their cellular products, all their phones, all their services, Dan was responsible for within the various Costcos. And along the way, he also established the Brettler Family Foundation, which is a charitable foundation focused on fighting homelessness.
Wow.
And so
you've done a lot, my friend. Wow.
Yeah.
You have.
So I had to take a nap before I talked to you guys.
Yeah, that's right. It made me want to take a nap after I heard all those accomplishments.
It was largely correct, Todd. My car didn't break. I just ran out of money.
Oh.
And my first job out here was actually selling storm windows door to door. If you could call it a job, being you worked and never got paid.
So
I'm not sure that's a job.
That's a .org in our language.
Yeah.
How many storm windows did you sell?
Well, my job was to create leads for this guy named Don, who would then go in and make the sales. The problem is after a month, I said, Don, you haven't made any sales yet, which means I haven't made any money yet, which means I can't do this any longer.
That is a good way to assess a business and how it's doing right there.
Like, I got you leads, but you're not making any sales. So I'm not making any money. And I guess back then you didn't have to pay anybody a minimum wage, or he just didn't. I don't really know.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you didn't. Yeah, that's true. There was a day
I literally got zero.
Didn't have to get paid. Okay, so you got zero.
That's nostalgic, isn't it?
So the car didn't break down. See, I always thought I heard the car broke down.
Yeah.
The car did break down, but it did break down. But that wasn't the reason I stayed in Seattle. I stayed in Seattle because I had $300 and I needed to get an apartment and a job. Then the car broke down when I was working for Pacific Stereo, which means I had to take the bus for like 6 months to South Center.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
You sell the car, or it just get towed away at some point?
No, I fixed the car, actually.
Oh.
That was my Saab Turbo like you had.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. How long did you work for Pacific Stereo before you launched your own gig?
I worked for Pacific Stereo for about 6 months, and I was a part-time salesperson, and I was on salary. And the salary, if I remember right, was $3.75 an hour, plus or minus a quarter there. I don't know. Somewhere between $3 and $4. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was a pretty good salesperson, frankly. I say humbly. And I'm watching all these guys sitting on their derriere selling stuff, getting paid good commissions. And I'm not making any, I'm making minimum wage. And I went to my boss one day, a guy named Jerry, and I said, look, I need to go full time and I need to get on commission or I need to leave. He said, bye-bye.
Really? He
didn't say it that way, but he said, I can't do it. Okay, I have to quit. But I actually went to work for a company called Northwest Auto Sound for 5 years before I started Car Toys after that.
Okay. All right. And then that's where you kind of polished your idea for launching your own gig at that stage. You kind of worked through it.
Yeah, in a haphazard manner. 3 to 4 of us, it kept changing, tried to buy Northwest Auto Sound. And we didn't have any money.
Okay.
But it was for sale. We didn't have any money. So we tried to do a leverage buyout. We could never agree on the price. And so that's when I went to Rio de Janeiro on a Harman Kardon trip. And with, I think, 2 other people. I came back. I was the only dummy that showed up to work out of the 3 of us the morning after the trip. And my boss had taken my office back. It was his office before he disappeared and tried to sell us the business. He'd taken his office back. So I'm like, there's 1 desk in this office, David. And he said, well, if you guys aren't buying the company, I got to come back and run it. Okay, if you come back and run it, I'm going downstairs to get a couple boxes and pack up my desk. And that's what I did.
Oh, wow. And you just walked out and said, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I was polite. I didn't burn any bridges and did a little bit of transition after that. But yeah, and then started Car Toys 6 months later.
Wow.
I think.
And you're in the first store, the flagship store was the one downtown, right? Is that where you started? Or
no, the first store was in Bellevue.
Oh,
where the light rail is now. We were there until the light rail came through, and it was imminent. Yeah, that was maybe 10 years ago, something like that.
Oh, really? I thought it was more recent.
It was Park Place Motors, maybe 7-8 years ago, and we moved just down the street.
So I'm curious. You're in that business, early on, and I remember growing up, and car stereos. It was a big thing when I was growing up to get a new stereo. Everybody was trying to put gear into their cars. I mean, we loved that. I mean, we actually, my friends and I always thought that the best sound system you could ever have is in your car. It just sounded better.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun business. I'm retired now, as you know, but it's a fun business, or was, because you got to actually see what people thought when you were done. We would train the salespeople. When you sit in the car and show them how to work, if they're not smiling from ear to ear, say something. Okay. Just say, hey, Gary, you're not smiling ear to ear. Is everything okay? Right. I mean, if you sell home stereo, they take the boxes, they go away. Bye-bye. They only come see you if you have a problem.
Right.
But in car stereo, we could see if they were a little happy or a lot happy. Of course, they tell you if they're not happy, but, occasionally. But, back then, you bought a car and you went straight to my stores or somebody else's stores because you didn't have anything. You had a blank plate and you had blank speaker holes and you had a blank cap on the roof for an antenna. You had nothing. And so you had to come get sound.
They didn't even come with basic AM radios?
No.
Oh.
No. Well, occasionally maybe, but most cases it was a blank rectangle with just a little plate.
A little spot to put something in.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I never thought about that. When my first car had a stereo already in it, and then I took it out and put in a nicer one. I was down in Oregon when I was a kid, but I never thought about that. So cars actually didn't even have stereos in them.
Oh, for years. It was easy pickings, because they just wanted a stereo.
Anybody would want a stereo. Wow.
Yeah.
And then
they were mostly pre-wired, then. That's not the point. They were pre-wired, so they weren't, in most cases, they were pretty easy installations back then too.
Okay. And then tell us about the evolution into when cell phones came about, right? Because that became a big deal to get a cell phone in the car. So that became a component of your business at some stage.
From the beginning, when I was at Northwest Auto Sound, wireless launched with a phone called a Novatel Aurora, I think, $3,200. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So it had a transceiver, date myself here, which was a big box. So you had to find a place to put it, under the seat, behind the seat, in the trunk. And then it had a home phone with a cord. And then you may remember, I'm older than you, but you may remember when we grew up, most cars had transmission humps, right?
Oh, yeah. Right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I don't really know why. I'm not a car guy. I'm a stereo guy.
It was between the two seats.
Between the two seats. So we sold a lot of pedestals. So you put a pedestal on the transmission hump, and then you mounted the handset to the pedestal. And then you put an antenna on the window, right? So there was $3,200. I mean, I could tell you as much as you want. I remember when they dropped AudioBox came out with a phone for $2,000. I remember when Mitsubishi came out with a bag phone for $1,500. So I was at Northwest Auto Sound when it started. When I started Car Toys, I remember that phones were like $7.99 installed. And then, I don't know, a year or two into it, you remember the Motorola Brick, the really big one?
Yeah.
That we hit free. And that was like a big deal. Like, oh my God. And that's when the business kind of went nuts.
Oh, because then the profit was going to be in the plan. Basically,
they were the subsidy dollars were huge back then. So you could buy the phone way down and still make, frankly, quite good money.
Right.
And that's when you paid what? $500 for 20 minutes of airtime as well?
It was $1 a minute. It was $1 a minute for quite a while. And you paid roaming fees and you paid directory assistance. And so, yeah.
I do remember that. I remember early on in my career when I got the first cell phone, and it was so expensive to make calls that every phone call I would make, I would think, I think I just lost money on that phone call.
Yeah, you didn't sell enough to make it. You had to be a lawyer or something.
Yeah, it was just like, I got to make these got to be worthwhile calls. So
I remember stopping to use a payphone just to save money.
Yeah.
Right. Me too. But it was a status symbol too. Kids would go to like Al's Auto Supply, right?
Yeah.
And for $19.95, they buy an antenna.
Right.
Oh,
right,
yeah,
right.
that's
and they
right.
just double back tape them on their windshield, right? So people would think they were cool and they had a phone. Oh, that was an antenna.
Yeah.
I'm actually still doing that, but
Yeah.
you know,
I noticed
bigger
that.
antenna now. So
And
yeah,
you're still paying a service plan on that, aren't you, Gary?
I didn't know they had contracts to those fake antennas. Well, that's so. And so then the business expanded. You started off with one or two stores, and then at that
Yeah.
stage,
One store.
one store. Then how'd you think, hey, let's just keep opening up stores? Like when did that come about? What's the story behind that?
I had an initial business plan, which is just paper, for 5 stores. So that's what
Okay.
I was going to do. And, the first store was me. I had a minority partner that I gave 25% of the business to. And because I wanted somebody else to have skin in the game. Having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean when you're an owner that you operate with skin in the game when a piece of the business was given to you for sweat equity. But he's a really good guy and he actually ended up working for me. I bought him out years later and he still worked for me for like 20 years. So, but I had so there were 3 of us at the beginning. There was me, there was Kent who sold, and there was Dan who installed. And Kent could go back and forth. And so he'd wear coveralls over a shirt and tie. And he just, Superman it, depending on where he needed to be. And I sold and I sold and then did the books. There wasn't a lot of books to do back then, but I did the books. So I did the office and sold. So then we just wanted to scale it. I never did it for one store and we did well. And then we opened Linwood. And that's where we started to become a little bit of a company. Like I had to hire 2 or 3 people, one to do IT, one to do ops, that sort of thing. And then I bought a building downtown Seattle and we went and opened a store there. That was the first 3.
Okay, right.
Did you, aside from the partner, did you get any other investment or loans to start the business?
No. I had 30 grand that I had saved up from, I don't know, somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Somewhere working. And that was everything I had went right. 30 grand. That was it.
So this is
and we had to beg for credit, right? Like you could write a business plan, but that didn't mean crap, right? So you had to beg to be able to buy product from distributors and manufacturers.
So I'm always curious on this. When you did that, you had 1 or 2 kids at the time. You?
I had no kids.
Okay.
And then Max and Quinn were born in opposite order. They're 89 and 91.
So with your wife, was there pressure? Did you feel pressure or did you feel it was a high risk or how did you approach that?
Well, I told her I was going to open 5 stores and she reminded me of that for many years when it became like 50.
That's on the positive side of that.
Yeah. Of course you do, Todd. Sure. Of course, anything entrepreneurial has risks to it, right? You take a lot home. But I don't think I ever felt pressure of like, oh crap, I can't support my family. Because frankly, we did well. I think the greater pressure is that it was a 7-day job for a lot of years, right? And you just, you come home, you have dinner with the kids, your wife, you put them to bed, you get back to work, right? Because it's just you don't have diddly for staff, and so you're working.
Yeah.
You're working a lot, and I think that was a big pressure for many years of that load and the load of wanting to be a good husband and a good dad, right? So I'd try and race out of there and see soccer games, and then you go back to work.
And when you were around the kids, you wore a name tag just to make sure they understood who you were in their line.
Is this the part that's edible, and so I can give you the appropriate hand signal?
I think you can throw up like an emoji or something.
I don't know how to do that. No, I actually did make it a high priority to be at games and plays and dinner, and read them to bed. I just worked a lot after that. I didn't make a lot of PTA meetings. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So that business eventually evolved into a second business then, right? Can you tell a little bit of the story about how that happened and what was kind of the process of starting the next company?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember what year. So we started Wireless Advocates, which you're asking about. probably in '03. That's pretty close there. So Car Toys was 16 years old. So at that point, we were 50 plus stores. We'd gone to Texas. We'd opened up Oregon, Colorado, Texas. So it was a pretty good size company. I had a friend an associate who called me one day and said, "Hey, I hear Costco's putting out an RFP for their wireless phone business. Would you be interested?" Of course, I asked a whole ton of questions, and it actually wasn't true. he kind of made it up because he wanted a little piece of something, right? Like a little broker fee or something. And it wasn't a lie, but it wasn't true.
So there was no RFP? There wasn't.
There was no RFP. And so, but the word was they were unhappy, and they were unhappy. They had Sprint having these little ugly red vest people with, I don't mean ugly people, but people in red vests with a little ugly crappy kiosk with like two phones there. And they had no share, right? They had no share of the business. They had single carrier. There's probably 3 carriers in the market at that time. And so he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Spike Anderson. And Spike was an in-house rep in Costco. So I just kind of played along for a little bit. And Spike's made, most of his living off of living physically in the Costco campus. And if you wanted to bring a product to Costco and you didn't have a manufacturer's rep, you were sent to Spike and his company. And he built a very large, very successful company, long since retired. So Spike knew. So the gentleman that introduced me had no value other than he had the idea, which was great. And then Spike and I got to be close and know each other. And, we ultimately decided, well, let's try. The value to Spike, in addition to just being a really good person and became a very good friend and became a board member of mine for 20 years, was that he understood Costco. So he could teach me how they thought, because it was very different than retailing at Car Toys. And then he could introduce me. And so we'd work our way up the ladder. We'd get enough approval. We'd go back down, write a plan, work our way up the ladder, get approval, blah, blah, blah. It took about 1.5 years to get approval for a test. And we did a 5-store test. And the crazy thing is we did it for 3 months and we got approved for the whole country. And then we had to roll out. So 18 months to get a test, 3 months to get the deal. And then it was like, oh, crap. Now what do we do?
Now you got to do the whole country? Wow.
Yeah. And we had to do
was that?
336 in 10 months. I had no infrastructure to scale up to that. That's exactly right. As it started to look good, I had a couple people that were helping me with the project, one operationally, one merchandise wise, and one financially modeling, on Car Toys staff, but just helping me at that point. And, we were like, careful what you bloody wish for. Well, then it was just a rocket ship.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. Sorry, that was a little bit of a long story.
Oh, that's great. Did you have to travel around a lot with all these stores?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did for some years, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's quite an operation.
Was there a moment, or did it just evolve when you knew this was going to be something? Car Toys, all of this, when it was going to be successful and it had a good trajectory to it?
Even though we had what we called shared services, the two businesses were operated distinctly different, except for a couple areas. Car Toys, I don't think there was a moment for sure. I don't want to be arrogant. I had a lot of confidence that we could do a good job at Car Toys, because I knew the business from 5 years at Northwest Auto Sound. And I thought that if we just did a really, really good job for the customers, we would be, and took care of the employees. Those were just the two things, then we'd be really successful. And, and those are not the easiest things to do, but that was those are the key tenets. Costco was always a roller coaster for the 18 years we were there, because they're, I think the best retailer in the country, if not the world. I just don't know the world. And they're the clearest as to what their mandate is, but it's so different than you fundamentally think as as the retailer that I grew up, that you just stumble over your own feet sometimes with what you think is a great decision for them that they just don't like. So you're living on the edge a little bit. And then, we had anywhere from a 3 to a 5 year, car toys we owned. At Costco, I had a 3 to 5 year contract at any point that, would get down to a year and a half, a couple times. And so you could never feel all that secure as, it's going to work forever because it was a contract.
Yeah. Yeah, we love Costco, and every time we go in there, they always tell you, even the people that register tell you, "Oh wow, you're getting out of here with under $300. That's pretty good." It's like no matter, it's an amazing retailer. Like you can't go in there and spend. Like I'm always impressed when there's a guy with a cart that he has like 2 items, and
No, that's unusual. Yeah,
super unusual. So
Still $300.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's a 20-inch, it's a 85-inch TV, but a 6-carat diamond ring. But he's got 2 items. Years ago, Gary, their average ticket price was $350, and that was years ago, right? And so, years ago, people came in 1.5 times a month, and so that's the machine.
Yeah, it is a machine. So wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. So yeah.
Back to the sort of moment theme here. Were there any episodes, any situations where you kind of had a huge learning in a moment of either car toys business or Costco business that kind of was an awakening of, changing maybe direction or just a realization of something?
Nah. Of course. Yes, of course. Let's see. Do we have a few hours here?
I planned every
how many hours do we have? Yeah, I'll give you. Let's see. I'll give you my top couple list.
Yeah.
So car toys first. We were rolling really well. Washington, Spokane, obviously it's Washington, but it's a different market. Oregon, Colorado. I don't want to say flawless, but we were rolling, and we did a lot of research with a company called Buxton Research before we chose Dallas and Houston. And what Buxton Research did was take all our customer base, do all the psychographics and demographics, and say, you look like, this, right? And we said, okay, where do we find people that look like that? They value this, they're of this income levels, this educational level, this age groups, blah, 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 these types of cars, blah, blah, blah. And Texas looked really good. And so that was a big leap for us. And we went in big. I had investors at the time. There was talk about trying to take the company public. I had sold 40% of the business. They wanted big growth. It was the .com boom. Every retailer was, just fascinated by trying to, double down with the .com business. And we signed about a dozen leases in Texas. And 2 things happened. One, 9/11. And kicked our what, okay? And then, lo and behold, that research wasn't very good. Really? Especially in Houston, where it's like, yeah, we look like this. And we go, well, but you charge $50 to put a pair of speakers in, and the guy down the street charges $25. And we go, yeah, but he doesn't, use these type of connectors, and he doesn't protect it from water. And they go, well, we don't care. And I go, well, if you don't care, I don't know what to do, because we don't know how to do crappy installs. I mean, I wouldn't say it that way, but it's like, oh Lord, we have a problem in the value proposition, right? And so we scaled up too fast, frankly. I amongst multiple lessons. I mean, you can't predict 9/11, and the .com bust then, but you can be smart enough, which I wasn't, to learn that when you go really out of your zone, don't scale too fast where you've signed like 15 leases and you have no way to retract, in any kind of financially logical way. So we had a few tough years there.
I always thought Houston, we've got a problem, came from the Apollo landing. But
I think, I said it many times. Guys, we have a problem in Houston. Houston was brutal. There's a Harwin Avenue in Houston. Good people, of course. There's a Harwin Avenue there that's loaded with transshippers. Okay? Product that you get that's not authorized, that's being sold by somebody not authorized to sell. That sometimes is the real thing, and sometimes it's labeled an Alpine blah blah blah, and that's really not what it is. And they don't care.
Okay.
They didn't care, so it was a problem.
People didn't buy that. They buy it if it's cheaper. They were looking for the cheapest gear down there.
Many. I wouldn't want to disparage anybody. That's their choice, or 5 million people. But yeah, especially in Houston.
Yeah.
And we just scale too fast. And then when you combine that with, okay, so the revenues aren't there, and you combine that with 9/11, and now my backyard's on fire. That was doing really well because everybody's having a couple of years of really big negative comp sales because you got a recession, right?
Yeah.
You got a serious situation. So I'll give you as many as you want, but I'll give you my first one in Costco. I think I've told Todd this. So I'm skiing in Whistler in the first Thanksgiving, and my phone is on fire ringing. Okay. And I can point, if I've never shown you, Todd, I can literally show you like the tree I had to stop and stand next to for like an hour and get screamed at because we're in our first Black Friday, Thanksgiving. And Costco didn't know or ever like third-party operators. They're very different than Walmart and Sam's. Walmart and Sam's welcome third-party operators, right? You walk into Sam's Club and Walmart, you see banks and jewelry stores. And Costco, we were loved and hated from the beginning. Okay, they loved the results and the share and the performance. We took great care of the members. They hated not owning and totally controlling the business. Okay, it was just something we had to fight just accept and acknowledge and work through all the time. So I'm skiing. It's Black Friday, and my phone lights up, and a guy named Dennis calls me, who's a really good guy. He just doesn't work there anymore. And he goes, Dan, you got a problem. I go, what's the problem? He said, Jim Senegal just walked into Spokane, and you got 5 guys, and 3 of them are standing around doing nothing. And he's pissed. And I said, well, got you, Dennis, but nobody would give us any data per hourly. What's the multiple of sales on Friday? What's the curve of traffic and volume, mornings to afternoon? I said, so I wanted to make sure I had enough people to take care of your members, so I got everybody working. He goes, well, you just got a mandate to not have more than 2 people in any kiosk in the country by Monday.
Oh wow.
I'm like, bah, 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 bah. So because in defense of Costco, because they don't play the short game, they play the long game. They don't want anybody walking in and seeing anybody standing around, or you may believe you're paying too much because there's labor that's not warranted in the stores. Okay. And they care less about somebody waiting or somebody not getting this face-to-face assistance right that second than changing that value proposition or value proposition appearance in the business. So those are the kind of things Car Toys, we just made everybody work.
Yeah.
And then if it was slow, we let them go home earlier, right? But you just prepare for the best and modify from there. And it was my labor expense. But so I literally on Monday had to lay off like 550 people coming into the Christmas season.
Wow. So it's all just perception. Like even though you controlled the labor force, it wasn't part of their bottom line, right?
Your cost.
Yeah, it was on your bottom line, right?
Yes, but I'm in there. Yeah, but we would tell people, for all the 18 years we were there, we are working in their living room, right? Yeah, and if I come to your living room and you say it's okay to put my feet up on the coffee table, I can do it. If you tell me it's not okay to put my feet on the coffee table, I can't do it, right?
Yeah,
it's their living room. We play by their rules, or we will get kicked out. The crazy thing was to me is it took almost 2 years to get a staffing model evolved, because I had 2 people in a Montana warehouse, and I had 2 people in a Honolulu warehouse. And a Montana warehouse has 40,000 people a month, and a Honolulu warehouse at the time had 250,000 people a month. Well, no retailer staffed the same in every store. Neither did Costco, but they just needed the lesson, right? Oh. They needed the lesson, and then they needed to learn how to modify the lesson. But it took 2 years. I'm sorry, Todd, you were going to say something.
Hey, Todd, it's football season right now. I'm excited. The Seahawks are making a run, so we'll see what happens. One super annoying thing that happens to me every football season is I'm on the couch watching the game, and I run out of a beverage. My beverage is empty, so I got to go get another beverage out of the fridge, which is It's not a long ways away, but I'm comfortable. I've got my pillows situated, my bag of chips, and I got to get up. Does that ever happen to you? Is that annoying?
I wouldn't say annoying, but yeah, it happens to me.
I have a low bar for annoying. Well, that's where our friends at Lounge Rover come in. You now no longer have to get up to retrieve your beverage of choice. With a quick flip of a switch, your armchair turns into a lowrider vehicle that can navigate you to the kitchen and back without getting up. It can reach speeds of up to 12 miles per hour and comes equipped with a drink chiller to keep your beverage cold and frosty on the commute back to the TV. What's even more amazing is it runs on one lithium-ion battery, so no carbon emissions, and you can even equip it with knobby tires if you have to traverse across Legos, beer cans, or other items that might be strewn across the floor. It comes in 16 different fabric choices and will be available for online purchases sometime later this year. Stay tuned for Lounge Rover coming to a store near you in 2026, and never leave the couch.
Were there any other store-in-a-store situations at Costco, or were you unique in that way?
The food vendors are still that, and the optometrist is a store within a store. I think still is, and that is it. I think the photo lab might have been a store within the store for a while, but the photo labs are long gone.
Yeah.
I think the optometrist and the food vendors, the sample vendors. That's it. And then they used to have what they call them, roadshows. I don't know. I don't think they still do. I don't know. Where you'd get these vendors come in and set up piano sales for a weekend, right? Or a week or 10 days.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
And those were third-party operators. But
interesting. Well, so, one of the things that we like to ask on this podcast is, because part of it is we want to be able to have young people learn from people that have been successful, but it's about definition of success. I mean, you've been successful at so many things in life, Dan. So if you had to think about your definition of success outside the financial part of success, how would you define it?
Thank you for that. I'm not sure I'm any more successful than anybody else, but I appreciate that. I would say a couple things. The most important thing to me, this is very cliche sounding, was to be able to go home every night with my integrity intact. That was it, right? That was it. You guys are the same way, I'm sure. And it's not just at work, it's in our lives, right? I mean, we just want to keep that intact. That sounds obvious, but not everybody does that. I was in both businesses, even though we were inside Costco, that was a mass merchant business. Our business inside there, and then certainly Car Toys, were specialty retailers. And specialty retailers don't really need to exist. Think about, and I mean, today, think about how hard it is to if I started, you couldn't start a specialty. It'd be very difficult to start most specialty retailer businesses today.
Yeah.
But even back then, we didn't need to exist. And the only reason for our existence was if we had a value proposition and delivered better service than our competitors. And so, that was that. And then I always believe that if you took great care to deliver great service to your customers, you had to take great care of your employees. And if they really liked working here and they felt well taken care of, you had a lot better chance, not a guarantee, that they would take great care of the customers. So it's simple to answer your question. It's not easy to execute, right? But you guys have all been businesses for a lot of years too. But, that was the requirement. Then the variable becomes demand, consumer demand, economy, channels of distribution, all recessions, depressions, political changes, all that stuff is what, revolves around us that we have to adapt to. But if I ever stopped delivering great customer service and taking care of the employees, the whole thing kind of implodes.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. That is. I mean, ultimately, we've thought a lot about that over the years, this concept that if you really want to take care of clients, you take care of the team members that are servicing the clients, right?
Totally. Because how would you take long-term care of your clients if they had to talk to somebody different every year?
Right. Yeah, that's great. There's a question that we also like to ask.
I'm getting scared.
Oh yeah. This one digs.
It's
deep.
multiple choice. We'll make it easy.
Okay, good.
There's a short essay involved on this one, I think. But
10%.
Okay, so you can go into history anytime, as far back as you can imagine, any point in history, and you get to go sit down and have a cup of coffee or whatever they drink in that point in history, and just sit with them and ask this person questions. Who would that person be? What part of history would that be? And what would you want to know?
That is a great question. And I think we've all thought about that a little bit. And it's what's really hard for me is to give you one person. Having said that, oddly or not, I go to these rock and roll superstars.
Oh,
I think if you could sit down with Mick Jagger or Paul McCartney or Bob Dylan or Jerry Garcia, and if you want me to give you one, I'll try and give you one. And it probably, I assume they don't have to be alive today, or do they have to be alive?
No. I mean, you could pick anyone.
They'd probably be Jerry Garcia because I'm such a deadhead. But I think these rock and roll stars have led these unbelievably storied lives. I think they've all had, 5 or 10 lives within their life, because if they live till 60 or 70 or 80, they made it through some crazy stuff, likely. I think their experiences are remarkable. So if it's one person, I'd probably say Jerry Garcia, but a close second would be Paul McCartney.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I could easily flip the answer to the question, be politician, and would love to sit down with Barack Obama, for as long as he'd let me and just chat, and that would be a fascinating experience as well.
Well, when we get him on the podcast, we'll bring you in as a question.
Would you please? Thank you. You guys are good friends.
It's interesting on that, because talking to people, especially music, I would love to watch how folks create their music and what it starts. Right. And in that, the Apple, Get Back, that 4-part Beatles, where you see Get Back starting to take sort of first just and then you've got, John Lennon in there saying, just make up words as you go. Don't worry about it. And I always thought a greater meaning in the back end, but it's really cool how that whole process came together in that. I would love to understand how these folks do that and what
exactly. I think my life would run out before I stopped having questions to ask with any of those people, because it's just, I think regardless of who I would answer your question, it would be somebody who, and I did, but it'd be somebody who just, rose above the crop, right? And accomplished exemplary things. And that's what in part makes their story, I think, so interesting, is their journey. That's what I want to hear about. You said the same thing. What was that journey? I mean, you'd ask Barack Obama, when did you really think you could actually be president of the United States? Right? It's like, what the heck? What the heck?
Yeah. What was that process like? That's really interesting.
Yeah, you kind of, there's a quick sidebar back to Jerry Garcia. So this guy I know, and I think I've told you about him before, Dan, but Mel, he's over at Definitive Audio. Mm-hmm. Mel actually, years and years ago, he was in Definitive. He's worked at Definitive for like 30 plus years. And this guy comes into the store one day and he asks him, hey, I'm looking for this recording device. We're doing some things while we're in town here with some music, and I just need this piece and this piece. And he's like, oh yeah, I think I got something like that. He had no idea who the guy was. He just, hey, are you in a band or something? He's like, yeah, I'm in a little band. He's like, oh, great. Well, let me see what I can find for you. And he doesn't ask him any more questions. He ends up leaving. And one of the guys goes, do you know who that was? And he's like, no, Jerry Garcia.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Definitive Audio, and he talked to him, and he.
Oh my God!
He was until he left.
There are only so many people that would not recognize Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, he wasn't a big deadhead, so he didn't know.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing.
He knew who he was as soon as he said the name, but I thought, oh, that's a missed opportunity.
Well, there are probably like hundreds of VW vans out front of Definitive right there when he came.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so back to our young person passing on nuggets of wisdom. So you get to sit down with any young person today, and everything you've learned in life, professionally, personally. What would be sort of your one piece of advice? It could be multiple pieces, but what would you pass on to a young person in today's world that you think could be helpful for somebody?
Well, again, these things are always so cliche-ish sounding to me when I respond, but chase your dreams, but be practical. You have yourself to support. You may have a family to support. You got bills to pay. So you can't chase your dreams if it doesn't pay the bills. But
can you talk to my sons, actually?
Yeah. But I do think it is best when you have passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that's not required. There's a lot of people who, one of the interesting things about people is many are entrepreneurish and many are risk adverse. And there's no judgment. It's just in our DNA or in our wiring. So, chasing a dream is very individually defined, right?
Yeah.
It could be, my dream is I got a job that I can provide for my family. I work 40 hours and I don't bring it home.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, great. Yeah. That's your dream. The other one I would just say is if you're fortunate enough to be successful, then financially successful. With privilege comes responsibility.
Yeah. Like
that. And that's super critical.
Yeah.
To me.
That's great. Yeah. Those are great nuggets.
Yeah. I know you're a big skier, but what actually relaxes you if you were to boil it down? What gets you out of the business go mindset when you were doing that?
Retiring.
Hence when you were doing
that. Took me 38 years to figure out how to answer that darn question. Yeah, retiring for sure. But before that, skiing, the funny part is like getting on a chairlift. Like I would come up with answers to business questions that I was struggling with by just getting on a chairlift. And I'm not even trying to solve that question right then. Right. But all of a sudden the brain has freed up. I'm like, you dummy. That's the answer to the question. Reading has always been valuable. To some extent, mindless reading. I mean, good novels, but less factual. Although I do more nonfiction these days than I used to, for sure. Exercise, super helpful.
Yeah. Basically something that takes you out of where your headspace is. It just
as much as possible. It's exactly. Yeah, actually, I never thought about it that way, but that's probably exactly right.
It's interesting. You reminded me. I'm reading a book right now called Do Nothing, and the book's all about meditation. And what it's talking about is that a lot of what you described on the ski lift is what the author talks about in Do Nothing, where a lot of great ideas come from clearing the mind. Like if you clear the mind,
totally.
Then all of a sudden it opens up this space for you to generate ideas. You're like, there's the idea. So I think that's what skiing does for you. Probably clears your mind, and you get to this place where it opens. Oh my God, that's the answer.
Yeah,
I think that's exactly right. I tell my daughter that sometimes it's like when you're trying to force yourself to the answer of a question and you can't get it. Just give yourself a break, because for better or worse, your brain's going to still work on it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you could say I'm not going to think about it, but somewhere in there, it's still grinding away, trying to come up with, should I do this tomorrow? Even silly things. My daughter gets stuck all the time with, well, should I do this or this tomorrow? Have that conversation with yourself. Thank you.
You just stay quiet.
But it's like, take a break. The answer will come. Yeah, but I think you're right. If you can clear your brain out, it keeps working and it isn't caught in the mishmash.
Yeah, that's, for me, it's one of the things I love about running is that
I bet.
take everything off and I can start floating, and I feel like my brain backs out of the cul-de-sacs that it's been in, and then they start to pop up to the top.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, most of the time, the last few years when I was doing running, I was mostly thinking about my knees. Yeah, that was the problem.
I don't run because of my knees. I wish I could run. Maybe I could, but I gave that idea up a long time ago. My body wasn't built for it.
One of the things that we've been focused on is just the concept of gratitude. And we've known each other a long time. And I know you're a really grateful person for all the things that surround you, the people love you, and you have so many friends. I often say that I think you might have more friends than anyone I know. So everyone loves you. But when you think about gratitude and what you're grateful for, what comes to mind? There's probably a lot of things, but what are the first things you think about?
I mean, thank you for your comments, but I'll give you a few. Sometimes maybe it's a puzzle or conflicting thoughts. Well, I'm always most grateful for my health, because without that, you're just screwed. And so, get up at our age, my age, you're youngster, Gary, right? You get up and you're breathing, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, and as you get older, we all have, different situations that remind us how fragile our health can be. So I'm most grateful for my health. And then I'm most grateful for, these days, my beautiful wife of 18 months, 14 months, 15 months. And
I heard later that you were spot on when you said the months.
Yeah, 15 months. And then I better get that right before Valentine's Day tomorrow. And family and friends. And I know that's just really corny, but that's, but the more you're grateful for that, the less you kind of want to spend time on other stuff, which is interesting as you get older. It's like, I need to do, I want less shoulds. But back to your health, like so anyway, health, my wife, my kids, her kids, and good deep friends, so like you guys. But but there's also, life kicks you in the butt sometimes, and it causes you to really try and understand what your definition of gratitude is. If you have, I've had tragedies, and those change your world, and so what you're grateful for becomes to some extent redefined. And then I remember breaking my knee, and as much as I thought I valued my health, when you can't stand up and brush your teeth without help, or you can't button your shirt, when I broke my shoulder, you're like, well, I thought I was really appreciative of being healthy, but I never said amen, I can brush my teeth on my own this morning, right? So things, I think, I've been fortunate enough to live 66 years, and I hope I live another 20 plus, and if I stay healthy. But I think your definition of gratitude evolves as your world and your story evolves, right?
Yeah.
In life.
Yeah. I found myself, as I get older, simplifying. I used to be
Totally
looking at, sort of material goods when I was, in my 20s. And that was sort of a marker of success and not quite happiness, but I would equate those kinds of things. Whereas today, I'm much more into relationships with people and interactions with people.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. One last thing I want to reflect on is your comment about when Senegal, when he was in Costco, and he said there were just too many people standing around. And I've often thought about that when Amy's in the kitchen, if she doesn't look busy enough. I said, Jim
Senegal says at Costco, here's what they do. And
I would have been surprised if we got through this without an Amy joke, Gary.
That's true.
It would have disappointed me.
It would have just been a bummer of a podcast, but this has been so.
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Just thanks for being so generous. Yeah, with your time, and it's super fun to talk to you. It's really interesting. So thanks for, and not like that, but just the friendship that we have with you is
same.
So
Same. Well, you guys are two great people and two great friends, and thank you. It was kind of fun. I didn't think I wouldn't enjoy it, but I actually enjoyed it a whole lot. So
yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So
thanks
very much appreciate it. Thanks.
Enjoy the slopes.
My pleasure.
Have fun up there and be careful and keep that knee in good shape. Yeah,
you got it. All right. Same to you guys. Love you both.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah, love you too.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.